Daytona 24-hour race after a long gearbox repair. It's later, it's this traumatic accident, but thankfully the driver, Kenny Atchison, escaped unhurt. 12 months later, and we're back to try again, and so's Kenny. But he's retired from racing, leaving Anthony Reid to take his place. Jeff Lees, our striker, outlined the team's strategy.
The main thing is looking after the car. That doesn't mean to say we're going to go slow, but it means that we're just going to be more relaxed with the gear change and just try and look after the car, stay out of trouble.
Now, that's easier said than done in a field of 80 cars, varying from the ultra-fast world sports cars and big GTs down to lowly BMW M3s, and not all the 323 drivers are quite as experienced as one might prefer. The two Ferraris were the hares, with Fermin Velez leading off pole, followed by half a dozen American Riley and Scott chassis powered by either Ford, Oldsmobile or Chevrolet engines. Around the banking on lap 1, and the track is beautifully clear. It stays like that for about 4 laps. Enjoy it while you can. This could be a rerun of last year's classic battle between the Ferrari of Giampiero Moretti and the R&S Oldsmobile of Wayne Taylor. Then they were less than a lap apart after 24 hours. Now they were running close together again. Our principal opposition in the GTS1 class was provided by the French-run Dodge Viper. They'd qualified just over a second quicker than us, and in the first hour we ran nose to tail just outside the top 10. Third in class early on was the new Callaway Corvette, finally making its racing debut. It was no match though for Andy Wallace in Rob Dyson's Ford-engined R&S, co-driven by fellow Brit James Weaver, who'd qualified the car third, and the Americans Butch Leitzinger and John Paul Jr. Slick pitchwork had put both them and Taylor ahead of the Ferraris, but the American sports cars were slower on the banking. Velez soon swooped by to regain the advantage, and Moretti's car, now driven by Derek Bell, queued up to take its turn. It had been a long time since the 5-time Le Mans winner had last raced a Ferrari, and he was enjoying every minute of it.
This is a real racing car, and it's something I realise now that's why I started racing all those years ago, because of the feel that I get out of this.
Derek soon passed Andy for third place, and next in the two Ferraris' sights was the Lister with me on board. Derek watches Velez edge past at around 200 miles an hour, down to the bus stop chicane on the back straight, into the braking area, and he dives underneath me, something I hadn't counted on. Whoops. While I have to stop before I can go to avoid a penalty, Derek is off on a charge and, helped by a slower car, blasts past into second place. I'm soon in for a scheduled stop for fresh tyres, another tank of fuel, and to hand over to Anthony. Oh yes, and to explain what happened at the chicane, where Derek's late dive saw him grab the very bit of road I had my eye on, and in trying to tuck in behind, I locked the rears and then elected to go straight rather than risk a spin. Why are the cameras always on me when I don't want them? Still, there was no damage done, and it would be my only drama in the 8 solid stints that I would drive. At least I knew what was going on, which this Porsche driver obviously didn't, as he turned into Velez in a typical Daytona incident. And here's a couple more that nearly got the Lister. First, Anthony has a tete-a-tete with a Mazda, and then Jeff gets involved in something that looks like the first corner of a rallycross race, with both Ferraris taking avoidance behind him. Out front, Scott Sharp gets belted in for a turn in the leading R&S, while the Velez Ferrari has to return to the pits not once but twice when team boss Andy Evans' buckle comes undone. In the Lister camp, we began a steady climb up the leaderboard as others fell away. Endurance racing is all about setting a sensible pace and hoping your car will last. As night fell, things were looking good. After 9 hours of racing, we were up to third place overall, leading our class by 3 laps. And then, our Achilles heel, the gearbox, jammed in fourth and needed changing. It left Lawrence Pierce a disappointed man.
We weren't really running our car, you know, as hard as people probably think we were. We were just on a nice, comfortable pace, and, you know, I thought we might be able to get through.
The replacement took 1.5 hours and dropped us down to 30-something. But we weren't the only ones in trouble. Before we'd stopped, the Wallace Weaver car was parked up. James was out of the car and the engine cover was coming off.
It was running as smooth as anything, just flat and fit on the banking, and they just dropped a valve.
The number 16 car was out and James and Andy were off to bed early. Then at 4 a.m. the Taylor RNS also blew its engine, denying the team a repeat victory. And in the Ferrari camp, an oil fire in the engine bay of the Moretti car damaged the wiring so much it needed a complete new loom. In just 86 minutes the job was done and the car returned to the fray. In the small hours, our chief rivals in the Viper also needed a new gearbox and dropped away. The other Ferrari was more fortunate with this minor spin, but they did lose 13 minutes rebuilding the rear suspension after a collision. It all left Rob Dyson driving his second car, number 20, in the lead, and he was about to get his English stars out of bed to lend a helping hand as the pressure mounted.
Well, the race so far is going okay. I mean, we've had minimal problems, radios and that kind of thing. You know, we've got a lot of racing left. We've been here before, and let's just hope we can keep it going.
Back in 1991, when James Weaver and I were leading with Rob in his Porsche 962, our engine broke at dawn, so he knew nothing was certain. But at least the chasing Ferrari was delayed when Charles Morgan came in with a damaged nose. Incredibly, he'd spun right in front of the leader, clumping him into the bargain. It left the Dyson car with handling problems, while Velez took over the Ferrari with a smart new nose, and with 30 minutes to go, he'd got on the same lap as the Dyson car.
I've had a lot of fun driving this car whilst it's in the lead, but you've got to say all the other team people have done a great job, and let's hope we can hold it together to the end.
That, unfortunately, was not possible for the Lister. The gearbox broke again just before the finish, pushing us down to be classified 19th, fourth in class behind two Porsches and the Viper.
Well, of course, it's disappointing, but then this is the romance of motor racing, and you just have to pick yourself up and dust yourself off and start over, which is, I know, what Lawrence will do.
Come the end of the 24 hours, and the Bell Moretti Ferrari had recovered to 7th and ran just behind its second-place stablemate. But the cheers were for homegrown winners in their Ford-powered Wiley Scott, driven in part by 7 different drivers, 5 Americans and our own 2 hometown heroes.
Second place. Now for rounds 5 and 6, they took place in difficult conditions in Thruxton, and he's been a busy man recently because our man there was Steve Ryder.